Well, good afternoon. And it is afternoon here again in Orange, California. And again, I am John from JPW Fertilizer. And we are under the complete heading of, up here, Shop Talk, AKA. Okay? And for you YouTubers, I think if you look under Shop Talk, you'll find these broadcasts more readily than if you look under JPW Fertilizer. Okay?
For the moment, until we link them to John's
Thank
website.
you. We like to say these things to people to keep you involved, okay? Again, we'd like to have this be interactive as time goes forward. We would like your comments, your suggestions, email's a good way. We really don't want to take a lot of phone calls because suddenly America is calling me at 4 in the afternoon and I don't think I can handle more than about 1 or 2 calls at that time. Okay, we're being facetious, but yeah, we would like to be interactive with people and have them share what they think, okay? Again, this is all about trying to provide information that makes you either a better gardener, a happier gardener, or both. And we would like to have you be a better, happier gardener than anything else, because gardening is supposed to be fun, and if you have to do irrigation trenches or whatever, and you're old, hire someone. Okay, and it keeps it fun that way. Don't try to do this heavy, strenuous stuff on your own as you get older, unless you're capable and you like to do it, okay? So, today, we've been asked to talk about succulents, and we're probably gonna do this in 2 or 3 parts, if not 4 parts, because it's kind of a broad topic. And especially here in Southern California, where the drought has just come on, so badly over the last 5 or 6 years, and now suddenly in one heavy rainstorm, they're telling us, how the drought's over. Well, first of all, let me clarify that before we go into succulents. That means soil moisture is still very low. If your trees aren't looking good and quite as vibrant as they have in the past, get a soaker hose, put a soaker hose on them. And the reason I'm talking about this is succulents like well-drained soils, but they'll grow in almost anything, which we're going to talk a little more in depth. But in Southern California especially, the big rage plant in the last 7 years have been succulents to overcome because they are supposedly drought tolerant. Well, many of them are extremely drought tolerant, some of them are moderate, and some of them aren't as drought tolerant as you may perceive. They actually will grow better with light irrigation and light feeding, okay? Those are by species. We're not going to talk about species. We're going to talk about general growing ideas and tips, okay? So, first of all, as you see, I just grabbed these this morning. They're all growing in the same area. So you're going to notice maybe that this one looks kind of orangey on the tips, okay? And see how that's kind of, well, that's probably just gotten a wee bit of sun as a young cutting, okay? And too much sun and it hasn't acclimated. But if you do notice on the inside, the tips are red and not so sunburned, which might indicate that it's going to be okay. This is just a thought, things to look at. If you notice where I laid, I said, I forgot what these things are even called, okay? My buddy gave me these and I laid them in my Haworthia pot because I had some place to lay them when he handed them to me, all right? And if you'll notice, they are starting to finally fade. I need to actually get them in. They've actually put out aerial roots. Notice aerial roots, okay, which are dead. So I need to stick that guy in a pot and see if I can save them for next spring. But you'll notice they flowered. Let's see, what does that mean if they're flowering in January? Does anybody out there really have a clue on that? Oh, wow. This is like the beginning of their summer, wherever this plant is from. So northern hemisphere plants typically, are the opposite timing of southern hemisphere plants. Our summer is their winter is our summer. So the coolest thing about knowing which hemisphere your succulents originated in is you can have a more diverse color presentation all year long, okay? And some of them only flower for a day or two anyway, and others, like this Haworthia, which if you could really look at this flower really close, it's almost orchid-like. And to me, because it's it has a very, very deep flower, that it requires, pardon me, a hummingbird type friend to help pollinate it. Okay? That's a whole context in its own, pollination of flowers. Okay, so now, once you see how much diverse these are, okay? This is a rubber plant that my friend tells me is a dwarf rubber plant, which I never heard of before. But if you'll notice, it's been in this pot just about this size from cuttings for just about 2 years. So I'm really thinking that this has really acted on the dwarf side right here, and he's right, okay? For people, if you're in Southern California, everybody sees these things and don't know what they are. They call them orange sticks, which is actually one of the euphorbia type succulents. The reason I bring up that particular family, the euphorbiaceae, is because usually when you cut one of these things, it makes a white, very white, milky, almost sticky sap. And many of the euphorbias can be very skin irritating and eye irritating. So you might want to know if you're planting euphorbias if you have small children and rabbits and stuff like that, and pets in your yard that eat your plants. It probably would never kill them, to my knowledge, but it could make them ill, or it could really make their mouth or their lips burn or whatnot. So then we have a sedum over here. Sedum, I don't know how many thousands of sedums there are, this big fuzzy thing, okay? And, and then we have what I think is a sempervirens, but I think it's still an echeveria too. I still am such an idiot. I mix them up, but I've only been doing this since like 72, folks. But it was always a hobby. I just collected what I liked and really didn't read about them, even though I'm a horticulturalist, because they're just so fun. And this goofy thing right here, if you plant that, you have to be prepared for a plant that gets about 5 by 5, okay? This guy right here. And if you notice, even though some of the lower foliages, the tips are really coming back out again because we're going into January. So it's thinking it's what? July sort of, and it's starting to produce growth even though it's still chilled, okay? Some of these other ones, like this is a real popular, and I still don't know the proper way to say calanchote, okay? I don't know if this is the panda though, and you'll know it's very fuzzy, and they're really simple to grow. These were cuttings I just stuck in the pot. Actually, okay, this is another Haworthia. This was actually one big plant, and I've got 2 or 3 pots like this now of singles, because when I picked it up to transplant it, the whole thing fell apart. And I didn't know it was going to do that. This particular one you can typically get out as a section usually, but this just came apart. And I've got some really beautiful ones. I got one of these in a pot that is just the most beautiful rosette when you look straight down on it. And if you notice the color, it's exquisite. Oh no, I dropped the aloe on the floor. That's $160 cutting. Holy crap shit. Okay.
And it went down to the ground.
And probably made a big dirty mess on our, but we have a vacuum cleaner here now. So yeah, my buddy gave me this, and I don't know why he paid $160 for this plant. This grower said it's a very, very rare aloe, okay? And that's why I brought it. It's beautiful if you look at it really close. It has red venation on the margins, on the outer leaf margins. Okay, that's how the plant grows naturally, is what I have been told. Okay, I'm not a researcher. I'm just a succulent collector, and because I like horticulture, and I have lived in areas like the Central Coast, I actually had a Dudleya collection. I was able to find a place where the Dudleyas grew, and I took one of each species and had them, and my good friend didn't water all of my stuff when I was away for a month on vacation, and they really, really, really suffered. I could never get them to come back. They only grow natively in San Luis Obispo County, and their best growing place is on the university. Did I just say that? Oh, yes, I did. Okay. And this goofy thing here, which I love, these have beautiful red flowers on them, and they come out really nice big panicles, is actually the cousin to this guy right here. These two guys are cousins. They're both crassulas. They're both rubber plants. It's a pretty diverse, large family. There's quite a few different species of those too. Mostly you see this one. These have really caught on in the last 3 or 4 years. And once you see them flower, you know why. It's worth just to have the flower. Now, there are many people that don't like succulents. They think they're ugly. They think they're frumpy. They think they're grandma plants. All that. Well, that kind of went out the window with this drought thing, at least here in the greater Southland, because everybody wanted to adapt this. And now you drive around and you see some amazing yards, okay, where this stuff has grown out for 5 years. You have to understand this plant right here alone, this orange sticks thing, can get it like 15 to 18 feet high and about 6 feet wide off this one plant. But that doesn't happen in 2 or 3 years. That takes 5 or 8 or 10 years. You know, the normal jade plant itself, you could take one sprig like this of the normal jade plant in 20 years. It's about half as big as your house, okay? And that's a bungalow and, you know, post-war bungalow in Santa Monica, all right? And the reason I brought all these is just to say, look, this is just stuff I picked up. I still had 30 or 40 other species just laying there on the ground. Well, I don't mean literally. I have these little racks I put them on. And so they get air underneath their pots. Remember, when you have pots, it's really good to have them raised up so air can also be sucked in from the bottom. And when people say that's ridiculous, try it. Things grow better. I mean, look at those. Those are, I almost have I think I have saleable plants here except for this. This is my onion right here, okay? And so, and this is what I'm talking about, and the word is diversity. So if you're lucky enough to live in an area where you have a succulent nursery that specializes in succulents, especially to be sold to landscape contractors doing jobs commercially, they could have a pretty good variance. There is one such in Irvine, California, which is just very close to us here in Orange, okay? A lot of these can be made from cuttings. I have a golf course superintendent friend that did the whole front of his golf course entryway out of his backyard from all the stuff that he's collected over 20 years and does what I do, stick them in something. So when I'm saying stick them in something, which takes us a little bit into soils, okay, a little bit, they will grow in anything from what you call poor to good soils, okay? Good soils, meaning soils that are healthy, provide nutrition, have drainage, aerification, and poor soils, meaning soils like we typically have here, heavy clay soils that have very little infiltration and are very rough. They still will grow. Now, there's a difference between a plant growing and a plant growing well, okay? And many people don't know the difference, but the people who have seen this or else learned this get a little more picky, okay? So that's something I can't teach you. You just have to say, like, if you go to the nursery, let's say there's 6 pots of these in a row, which one's the best looking one? Is it the best looking one because it's darker green on the leaves? Notice all of these leaves are pretty much the same color. So I'm not sure how dark this gets, and this is in semi-shade. Now in deep shade, this might actually get darker, okay, because photosynthesis changes and you have a different amount of carbohydrate being pumped into the plant leaves. That's too technical, okay? See, so when you look at plants, you may start looking at them not just for their size, oh, that's the biggest 1 gallon. You might look at for its more vibrant color and that the structure actually is more suited, and you can give it an extra 6 months to do what you want it to be and not just settle on, oh, the biggest one. A lot of people have done that. I have worked in a number of nurseries. It's always, oh, that's the best deal because that's the biggest one. And you pull the thing out and there's no structure. Well, what a bummer later, okay? Okay, if you understand. So back to soils. Again, what I like to do is take Sunshine Mix number 4, which is it comes in a black bag, is sold usually at a hydroponics type supply store or an agricultural distributor, especially if they cater to like nurseries, wholesale nurseries. I believe L&L is still out in Chino. I think they'll even mail order, okay? And I do know there's a couple of other people, like Larson Brothers, I think is one, and people like that. And so you look in your area too, under agricultural distributors or wholesale nursery suppliers, and a lot of times they'll sell you a bale. A bale of this is, when you open this up, a bale of this weighs about 80 pounds, okay? And it's a 3x3, it's a 3 cubic yard bale, okay? Actually, I think it's 9 cubic feet.
It should be 9 cubic feet or 9.3.
Yeah, nine, yes. And you think, wow, That's not very much till you open this thing up and break it open, okay? And it sort of grows. It's sort of like microbiology that just goes insane once you give it a food source, okay? It makes this big pot. To that, I like to add pretty much, if I was going to go after succulents, I like to use the Bio Basics. Again, we haven't discussed putting that in 10-pound bags yet. And as I've said in other videos, if we get even 1 or 2, if I get 4 or 5 requests, okay, I'll take a bag and I can make up 10-pounders for people. We don't mind doing that, okay, and see how that goes. The soil conditioner will do the same thing, but the thing about the Bio Basics is it has the calcium phosphate in there. I always say that. Calcium phosphate in there, which is soft rock phosphate, and it provides them with that calcium phosphorus source. So when you're taking a root and cutting, and remember, when you make a cutting with a succulent, typically you want to let it callus off, okay? And I just happen to have an end right here on one of my little laydowns. See how this is all calloused off and looks all gnarly? Are we seeing that? Okay, I might clip that off right there and get those 3 nodes down in the pot like that, or maybe pop a couple of more leaves. But you see how this is all hard and nasty? You want it to get callous. Think of it if you go barefooted in the summertime and what the bottom of your feet look like, okay? You want it to look like that, and then you can do it. It takes anywhere between 7 and 30 days for most succulents to callus, and usually it's more on the short time than on the long time, okay? This is shown on the internet. There's books on this. This is nothing new. And so if you have a little calcium phosphate in there when you stick that in the soil, it doesn't burn the root. Instead, it enhances the root to establish and actually start putting out real roots through that callus, okay? And typically the callus isn't really what roots. It's really the nodes, like right here, that will root, okay? Like if I pull that leaf off right there, see there's a node right there. That will produce a growth point, okay? And by having that simple mixture. Now, there's many opinions where you can take, like a small amount of garden soil. And when I say garden soil, I mean soil that was actually in a garden, like a vegetable garden that's been worked. And that would add some microbiology too with that food. There's people that want to put sand in it because they're succulents and all that. I got to tell you, in this pot right here, and if you look at it, you can see the vermiculite, you can see the peat moss. You can't really see the bio basics because it's black, okay? It looks like peat moss. When I water that, the water comes out the holes. That's what you want with succulents. You want drainage, okay? If you don't have drainage, you water way less in non-infiltrated soils. And what I suggest to do to people is when you're going to do potting, go down to the hardware store or the Home Depot or whatever the hell, which one of those you got, and get a big piece of sheeting for screen doors, cover all your holes, cut a piece of it. It doesn't have to be round. You can just cut it square, stick it down in there, and when you put in the first handful, you pack it down in the bottom. And now these gallon pots become usable, and you notice that you don't have a whole bunch of crap running right out the hole, okay? See, I'm doing that right there. Okay. Now, one other of the JPW products that turns succulents into magic is the crop thruster, the liquid biostimulant that you spray on the plant that contains the micronutrients. I think I've talked about that 2 or 3 times, and I don't know how readily these are coming out, but that has already been discussed heavily. When you use crop thruster, wow, is that crop thruster? Oh my God, I gotta wear it like a hat here. Look, this is the crop thruster. Now everybody tells you that succulents need no food and all of that. I'm gonna tell you right now, how many people out there watching this don't eat anything?
Nobody that I know.
Okay? I mean, how many people out there go on a diet and don't eat anything? You're not Joaquin Phoenix going for the movie where he said he had to eat lettuce for like 9 weeks to lose all that weight. Okay? That's the movies. Remember the movies? Yeah. Okay.